Hey guys, my name is Ken Trent. I negotiate large e-commerce deals, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite negotiations of all time, which was when I was working at Amazon as a vendor manager in the action figures, collectibles, and boy toys space. I got to negotiate with Funko Toys, which is the manufacturer of those little bobblehead toys. They sold a bazillion of those things, and when I was working with my counterpart there, we had some really awesome negotiations, and today I want to talk about one of my favorites. I also want to cover some key topics that went into the negotiation to help you guys understand my thought process and the logic on what made it a successful negotiation and why we were able to successfully negotiate this $12 million deal, which I'm, again, super proud of. So the first thing that I would like to cover is looking at through the lens of power dynamics. The very first thing that I typically look for when I'm evaluating a negotiation is what are the power dynamics between my company or organization and their company or organization. I think that there's a couple things that are pretty clear on this. Amazon at the time in 2018 was a $232 billion organization. Which is pretty massive for sales, obviously. They were the behemoth, the beast. Funko, on the other hand, was not small at all, but relative to Amazon was a much more modest $686 million organization, which put Amazon at about 240 times Funko's sales. So in terms of power dynamics, there's no question that Amazon was the more powerful, I guess, side of the negotiation. It was much easier for us to kind of use the size of our annual sales as kind of the gorilla in the room. If we didn't like something that a vendor was saying or doing, then typically we could, I don't want to say bully our way, but I mean, there was an element of that. Amazon doesn't usually have to negotiate very much because the customers are there, and typically Amazon gets what they want. So that tends to work in Amazon's favor. That certainly worked in my favor when I was there as a vendor manager, but that can be counterbalanced through the second point I want to talk about, which is leverage. The leverage in the conversation is typically what does each side of the party have in terms of what the other side wants, right? And for Funko, it was very clear Funko had hot items that people were after, right? Amazon, on the other hand, very clearly had tons of customers. So Amazon, and there were other things also for both sides. Amazon had a great product acquisition and distribution system. Thank you, autocorrect. And so that made it very easy for us to kind of leverage that also. And in particular, Amazon had a better acquisition and distribution system for products than a major competitor that I'll talk about in just a minute, which was a key part of this. Now, let me tee up the negotiation before I get into the third part, which is the ask. So at some point, Funko approached me, my counterpart at Funko approached me, my sales rep, and essentially said, hey, we've got a subscription box that we've been selling direct to consumers for the last couple of years, and we just want to get out of the subscription direct to consumer business. So we have this subscription box for Marvel branded Funko Pops that we think will do very well with Amazon because it does very well on our direct-to-consumer website. This box, again, this is 2018. I don't know if anybody remembers the launch of these boxes, but it essentially had like a really cool collectible bobblehead, and then it comes with, it might have like a mug in it or like a collectible pin put on your backpack or whatever. And there's like a few tchotchkes in there, right? Keychain, whatever. And essentially this box would sell, I think it was around $50 or something close to that. And it was a monthly subscription box that they would sell to their consumers. So Funko approaches me with this box, and in the course of the conversation, I discovered that Funko had 4 of these boxes, and they were bringing one to each of their 4 key retailers, right? One was coming to us, one was going to Target, one was going, I think, to Walmart, and I want to say the 4th was going to Hot Topic. I don't even remember 2 of the boxes. The 2 that mattered to me were the Marvel box and the Star Wars box. I'll tell you why. So at the time, you think of 2018, I mean, this is at the height of Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is when, Avengers Endgame was in discussion. We were talking about, how are they going to bring back all the half of the people that got snapped away and like that whole thing, right? And then the Star Wars was just going through its kind of resurgence with The Force Awakens. They were relaunching the entire property. And trying to make it relevant in the global eye again. And the end result of this was we were getting the best box, which was the Marvel box, and Funko came to us with that box, which I was super grateful for, very happy with. But at the same time, I knew that Star Wars was going to be also a massive property. And so I began immediately to ask about the Star Wars box. Even though I was grateful for the Marvel box, I wanted to know more about the Star Wars box because it was what I was not getting. And in the course of the conversation, I discovered that that box was going to Target. Now, I knew we could absolutely crush Target in terms of ease to work with, product acquisition, product distribution, all that stuff. And we were in it to win it. So my ask essentially was, give me Target's Star Wars box, okay? Now, the immediate response to this was no, okay? Funko was basically said absolutely not. And okay, so I get it. You want to preserve relationships with Target. I understood the response, but typically negotiations start when one party says no. So I took that as the starting point. So I'm going to cover the strategy here in just a moment, as well as some of the tactics that I used to kind of give you an idea of how I went about this negotiation and how I essentially won what I was after. So a little more context in all of this. At the time that Funko approached us with the subscription box opportunity, we were going to kind of fudge our way through the subscription aspect of this, okay? Meaning we were just going to buy the product. We decided to move it to a 2-month model. Instead of every month, it was going to be every 2 months. And we were essentially just going to place an order for X amount of units every 2 months to fulfill these products for customers. But what we discovered in the course of these conversations was there was another internal Amazon team that was kind of spinning up a subscription program so that we could take standard consumer packaged goods and start releasing them on a subscription model. So you'll see now a lot of like the subscribe and save options when you're shopping on Amazon, and they have subscribe and save for everything, right? For toilet paper or vitamins. But at the time, that was still in its infant stages. And what we discovered when I started bringing this to my leadership team, they had more context, obviously, on what was happening broader in Amazon. And they essentially said, hey, let's talk with this subscription team and launch subscriptions with the Marvel box, which was a massive opportunity for us. And so the strategy that I employed was to kind of, the core strategy was execute well on the Marvel box, right? So there's kind of a secondary strategy that essentially was to leverage our Amazon software development resources to impress Funko, okay? And how I pitched this to Funko was that we were going to essentially dedicate, with all of the value that Amazon adds, you got to have massive internal projects to justify anything in Amazon, right? Like you've got to have, to get a software development team to build something for you, you've essentially got to say, hey, this is going to be a $100 million opportunity or whatever it is, or $1 billion opportunity or whatever it is, right? And so for me to go to Funko and say, hey, we're gonna add software development resources to build out a subscription box program that will essentially launch with the Marvel box as its first product was like a pretty big deal to Funko. And to be able to leverage that internal team's development to show Funko why this was such a valuable launch for us was a kind of a part of the secondary strategy. Now, as I mentioned before, Funko told us no right out of the gate to that Star Wars box. They said absolutely not because they were trying to preserve the relationship with Target as their other key supplier, right? So I employed 3 specific tactics. The first tactic that I employed was just gentle persistence, okay? At first they told me no, and as we know, when a counterpart tells you no in a negotiation, that's when the negotiation starts. So they told me no right out of the gate, and I essentially said, okay, and then I kept asking anyway. So every week I had a call with my Funko rep. Every week I would ask him about the Star Wars box. When are we getting the Star Wars box? Hey, can we have the Star Wars box now? Hey, are you ready to give us a Star Wars box? And essentially was told no every single week for months, right? I mean, it was taking months to transition this box. I mean, I think they had like a 6-month roadmap to discontinue their own sales on their own website and then transition to their other suppliers. They were giving us plenty of time, which was great. That gave us plenty of time to work on the software development side of things. And in the course of that, again, as part of my strategy was to execute well, I leaned on the subscription team and had their total buy-in as well. Like they were 1,000% on board. They were very excited to come right out of the gate with something big to make a splash, because this gave them the visibility that they needed to be a successful program as well, right? So in the course of this, I would reiterate with my Funko rep how we were prioritizing the development of our subscription program just for Marvel. So I, along with this gentle persistence, I maybe gave a little bit of embellishment in terms of how important the Marvel box was to us, but it was with a very strategic purpose of getting that Star Wars box. The second tactic that I employed is something that's called the reverse why. The reverse why essentially is, and the question that I asked my Funko rep is, why did you come to us with the Marvel box? And it gave my Funko rep an opportunity to sell himself on why we were the preferred partner, okay? This is very important. So essentially when I asked, why did you come to us with the Marvel box? I mean, that's awesome, don't get me wrong. I love that we have this opportunity, but why us? Why Amazon? And it just helped him. I mean, the answers are obvious. You can probably guess all the things that he said, but it gave him an opportunity to remind himself on why Amazon is the preferred partner. Essentially, Amazon has, the most eyeballs on products. It's the most convenient way to shop. It has the most customers. The product acquisition and fulfillment system as a whole is preferable to Funko. They can just bring a pallet in, ship a pallet out, and everything is tracked and logged very easy in our system, ingested into our network, and then we auto distribute to the right warehouses, etc. And that's what Amazon does, and we do it well, right? And so that gave him an opportunity to sell himself without me putting my sales hat on, to essentially say why we're the preferred partner. Again, I'm trying to get, I already have one, I'm trying to get a second box here, and using the reverse why planted those seeds in my counterpart's mind as to why we were the preferred partner and why we should get a second box. Now, the third tactic that I used was a surprise gift. And the purpose of a surprise gift is essentially to create a little bit of indebtedness with your counterpart on why they should concede something to you, right? And my gift was just placement, okay? As you can, probably surmise, digital placement or digital real estate on Amazon's website is worth a pretty penny, especially if you can get above the fold, is what we call that, right? Where the page gets cut off. If you can get a banner or a product above that fold and it's the first thing that loads on the page for a shopper, that's a pretty big deal. And we charged a premium for that. And so while the actual cost is kind of negligible, it's a sunk cost at that point, right? Software engineers built the whole system so that we could sell it, but all of those costs are essentially done and paid for. The only cost to us for ads on our website is opportunity cost, where someone else might pay or pay more, right? So at the time, I owned the collectibles page, which means I was able to decide what went where and that sort of thing. And so it was very easy for me to have a banner created for the Marvel box and essentially tell Funko, like, hey, I'm giving you some free ad placement for the Marvel box. I would love to include the Star Wars box on this if you can pass the Star Wars box our way. And so that became a very simple and easy offer where I could get something for virtually nothing on our part, right? And so that was my third tactic that I employed to help my counterparts see the value in bringing that Star Wars box to us. Now, again, at first, the response was no. No, absolutely not. We got to preserve the relationship with Target. The other boxes are going to Walmart and Hot Topic, I think it was. And they're going to go where they're going to go. We've already decided this. We decided this weeks ago. It's set in stone. You get the Marvel box. Okay. Fast forward 2-3 months into this, every week on my call with my Funko rep, that was one of my first questions. We'd cover the absolute critical conversation points first. And then I would ask my Funko rep, hey, are you ready to give us the Star Wars box yet? Can we get the Star Wars box? Can we do the Star Wars box and the Marvel box together? I'll launch them both together same time. We got it. We're prioritizing the resources for you. When are we going to get the Star Wars box? And constantly, and gently, persisting to ask that question over and over. You know, we try to do it lighthearted, humorous. I was trying very hard not to be annoying, but also be very clear that this was something that I wanted, right? The end result was, after about 6 or 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks, of Target essentially dragging their feet, we were trying to execute fast and hard on the Marvel box, and Target just wasn't. I don't know the details on why or what happened, but my rep essentially said Target's dragging their feet. So he went to bat for me within his leadership team's structure, right? He was able to go say, hey, they want this box. They are hungry for Star Wars. Because of my gentle persistence, I didn't let that conversation die. He constantly had it in his mind that we wanted that box. And then, because I had asked the reverse why, he had all the reasons fresh in his mind on why we were the preferred partner. And if they brought box number 1 to us, they might as well give us box number 2 also, because we clearly want it and we're executing to earn that second box, right? And then, of course, he could say, look, they're giving us placement. This usually costs thousands of dollars, and they'll put the Star Wars box on there too. It's front and center in the collectibles page. So that's something that's valuable to us. And the end result of that was he essentially got what he was after. So the internal team with Funko made the executive decision after 2 or 3 months to switch gears, move the Star Wars box to us. The end result of that for me was a $12 million add to revenue. It took a few months to get the Funko team on board, but it certainly paid off. We were about a $40 million business trailing 12 months prior to that negotiation or to onboarding those 2 Marvel boxes, and then was very happy with that negotiation. Appreciate you guys listening. Always happy to discuss negotiations. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what I could have done differently or better on this one. And then if you have negotiations that you want to share also, would love to hear about that, or feel free to, if you're stuck on something, you can always reach out to me, go to my website, eCommKen.com, and that's pretty much it, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.